by Mr. Thornton Wilder. And tonight it's being produced by the Hip Pocket Theater, Miss Deanne Simons. Directed by Mr. Johnny Simons. And in it you'll see Miss Lorca Simons, Mr. David Yeagle, Mr. Richard Harris, Miss Sharon Garrison, Miss Sidney Griffin, Mr. Jimmy Joe Steenberg, and a lot of others that are too numerous to mention at this time. Now, the name of our town is Grover's Corners, New Hampshire. And that's just over the line from Massachusetts. Well, latitude is 42 degrees, 40 minutes. Longitude is 73 degrees, 37 minutes. Now, the first act shows a day in our town. The date is May the 7th, 1901, just before dawn. Just about. The sky is beginning to show some streaks of light in the east over there, just in back of our mountain. Oh, that morning star always gets a wonderful bright just before it has to go. Well, now I'll show you how our town lies. Now along here is Main Street. And cutting across it over there to the left is the railroad tracks. And across the tracks is Polish Town. Oh, you know, the foreign people that come to work in the mill here. A couple of Canuck families, the Catholic Church. Now, the Congregational Church is over there. Presbyterian's across the street. Methodist and Unitarian are over there. The Baptist is way down in the hollow. It's by the river. Now, next to the post office over there is our town hall, and the jail is in the basement. Brian once made a speech from those steps there. Now, all along Main Street, there are rows of stores. There's horse blocks, hitching posts out front. First automobile will be coming along in about 5 years. And that belonged to Banker Cartwright. He's our town's richest citizen. He lives in the big white house on the hill over there. There's the grocery store, Mr. Morgan's drugstore. Almost everybody in our town manages to look into these shops at least once a day. Now over here is our doctor's house, Doc Gibbs. And this is the back door. You're going to have to use your imagination because we can't afford any real scenery. This is Mrs. Gibbs' garden. It's corn, peas, beans, hollyhocks, heliotrope, and a lot of burdock. Now, at that time, our newspaper came out twice a week. The Grover's Corners Sentinel. And Editor Webb's house is over here. And this is Miss Webb's garden. It looks a lot like Miss Gibbs' garden. Except there are a lot of sunflowers in it, too. Now this is a big butternut tree. It's a nice town. You know what I mean? Nobody very remarkable ever came out of this town as far as we know. Earliest dates on the graves up in the cemetery on the hill, 1607. And they had names like Grovers, Cartwright, Gibbs, Hersey. Same names as you hear around here now. Well, as I said, it's early morning, and there's only a few lights on in town. There's one in the cottage up by the tracks where a Polish mother just had twins. And over at Joe Crowell's house where Joe Jr. is getting ready to deliver the morning paper. And at the depot where Shorty Hawkins is getting ready to flag the 545 to Boston. Yep. And there she is. Of course, in the surrounding countryside, the lights have been on for some time, what with the milking and so on. But in town, folks like to sleep late. So another day has begun. Here comes Doc Gibbs, coming home after that baby case. Here comes Miss Gibbs down to get breakfast. Doc Gibbs died in 1930. New hospital's named after. His wife, she died a lot earlier. It was a long time ago, in fact. She had gone to visit her daughter, Rebecca, who had married this insurance man from Canton, Ohio, and she died there. Pneumonia. Of course, they brought her body back here. She's up there in the cemetery on the hill right now, along with a mess of Gibbses and Herseys. Well, her name was Julia Hersey before she married Doc Gibbs in the Congregational Church over there. We like to know the facts about most everybody in our town. Here comes Miss Webb down to get breakfast. Here's Doc Gibbs. He got the call to go to Polish Town at 1:30 this morning. Here comes Joe Crowell delivering the Morning Sentinel.
Morning, Doc.
Morning, Joe.
You want your paper now?
Yes, I'll take it.
Anybody been sick, Doc?
No, couple twins over in Polish Town. Hey, Joe, I see where your teacher, Miss Foster's gonna get married.
Well, yes, sir, to a fellow over in Concord.
I declare now, how do you boys feel about that?
Well, of course, it ain't none of my business, but I think if a person starts out a teacher, well, she ought to stay one.
How's me, Joe?
It's fine. Never think about it at all. Only like you said, it always tell me when it's gonna rain.
Well, what's it tell you today? Gonna rain?
No, sir.
You sure?
Yes, sir.
Do you ever make a mistake?
No, sir.
Let me tell you something about that boy, Joe Crowell, there. Now, Joe was awful bright. He graduated head of the class from high school here. So we got him a scholarship to go to Boston Tech, MIT, that is. And he graduated head of his class there, too. It was all written up in the Boston papers at the time. He's going to be a great engineer, Joe was. Then the war broke out and he died in France. All that education for nothing. Now, what business he had to pick a quarrel with some German we can't make out to this day, but it all seemed perfectly clear at the time.
Giddy up, Bentley. What's the matter with
Here comes Howie Newsom delivering the morning milk.
Morning, Doc.
Morning, Howie.
Somebody sick?
Oh, no, couple twins over Mr. Slowski.
Twins, eh? Town's getting bigger every year.
Yeah, gonna rain, Howie?
No, fine, day. It'll burn through. Come on, Bentley.
Well, hello, Bessie. How old is she, Howie?
Going on 17. And Bessie's all mixed up about the route. Ever since the Lockhart stopped taking the quart of milk every day, she wants to leave my floor just the same and keeps scolding me the whole trip.
Good morning, Howie.
Morning, Miss Gibbs. Doc's just coming down the street.
Is he? Seems like you're late today.
Something wrong with the separator. I don't know what it was. Doc?
Howie.
Children, time to get up.
Come on, Bessie.
George, Rebecca. Everything all right, Frank?
Yes, I declare, easy as getting.
They're going to be ready in a minute. You sit down and drink your coffee. You can catch a couple hours sleep this morning, can't you?
Oh, Miss Whitworth coming at 11. I guess I know what that's all about, too. Her stomach ain't what it ought to be.
Well, I told you won't get more than 3 hours sleep. Frank Gibbs, I don't know what's going to become of you. I do wish you would go away someplace and take a rest. Well, I think it would do you good.
Emily, time to get up. Wally, 7 o'clock.
I declare you got to speak to George. Seems like something's come over him lately. Why, he's no help to me at all. I can't even get him to chop me some wool.
Is he sassy to you?
No, he just whines. All he ever thinks about is that baseball. George, Rebecca, you'll be late for school.
George, look sharp.
Yes, Pa.
Don't you hear your mother calling you?
Wally, you'll be late for school.
Guess I'll go upstairs and catch 40 winks.
Wally, you wash yourself good or I'll come up and do it myself.
Ma, what dress should I wear? Don't make a noise. Your father's been out all night and needs his rest. I washed and ironed the blue gingham for you special. Oh, Ma, I hate that dress. Oh, hush up with you. Dressed like a sick turkey. Now, Rebecca, you always look very nice. I'll come up and slap the both of you. That's what I'll do.
We got a mill in our town, too. Do you hear it? Cartwrights own it. It makes blankets and it brung them.
Rebecca's not intended. You're just saying that.
Children, now I won't have it. Breakfast is just as good as every hurry of a meal, and I won't have you gobbling like wolves. It'll stunt your growth, that's a fact. Wally, put away your books.
Ma, by 10 o'clock, I've got to know all about Canada.
You know the rules well as I do. No books at table. As for me, I'd rather have my children healthy than bright.
Well, I'm both, Mama. You know I am. I'm the brightest girl in school for my age. I have a wonderful memory.
Eat your breakfast.
Seems to me 25 cents a week's enough for a boy of your age. I declare I don't know how you spend it all.
Oh, Ma, I got a lot of things to buy.
Strawberry phosphate, that's what you spend it on.
I don't see how Rebecca comes to have so much money. Well, she has more than $1.
I've been saving it up. Great. Well, dear, I think it's a good thing to spend some every now and then. Mama, you know what I love most in this world, do you? Money.
Now walk fast, but you don't have to run. Wally, pull up your pants in the back.
Now, Miss Foster, I sent my best congratulations. Can you remember that? Oh, yes, Mom. We're gosh, you back up and off your feet. Here, chick, chick, chick. No, you go away, you. Here, chick, chick, chick. What's the matter with you? Fight, fight, fight. That's all you do. You don't belong to me. Where do you come from? Now, don't be scared. Nobody's gonna hurt you. Oh, good morning, Myrtle. How's your cold?
I still get that tickling feeling in my throat. I told Charles I didn't know as I'd go to choir rehearsal tonight.
Have you tried singing over your voice?
Yes, but somehow I can't do that and stay on the key. While I'm resting myself, I thought I'd string some of these beans.
Here, let me help you. Beans have been good this year.
I decided I'd put up 40 quarts if it kills me. Children say they hate them, but I noticed they managed to get them down all winter.
You little Webb, I've got to tell you something, because if I don't tell somebody, I'm going to burst.
Julia Gibbs.
Myrtle, did that second-hand furniture man from Boston come to see you last Friday?
No.
Well, he called on me. First, I thought he was a patient wanting to see Dr. Gibbs, and he wormed his way into my parlor. And Myrtle Webb, he offered me $350 for Grandmother Wentworth's highball. As I'm sitting here.
Why, Julia Gibbs.
He did. Well, that old thing, it was so big I didn't know where to put it, and I almost gave it to Cousin Hester Wilcox.
Well, you're going to take it, aren't you?
I don't know.
You don't know. $350. What's come over you?
Well, if I could get the doctor to take the money and go away someplace on a trip, I'd sell it like that. You know, Myrtle, it's been the dream of my life to see Paris, France. Oh, I don't know, it sounds crazy, I suppose, but for years I've been promising myself that if I ever had the chance...
How's the doctor feel about it?
Well, I did beat about the bush a little and said that if I got a legacy, that's the way I put it, that I'd make him take me.
And what did he say?
Oh, you know how he is. I haven't heard a serious word out of him since I've known him. No, he says, it might make him discontented with Grover's Corners to go traipsing about Europe. Better let well enough alone, he says. Every 2 years, he makes a trip to the battlefields of the Civil War, and that's enough treat for anybody, he says.
Well, Mr. Webb just admires the way Dr. Gibbs knows everything about the Civil War. Mr. Webb's a good mind to give up Napoleon and move over to the Civil War. Only Dr. Gibbs, being one of the greatest experts in the country, just makes him despair.
It's a fact. Dr. Gibbs is never so happy as when he's at Antietam or Gettysburg. Well, the times I've walked over those hills, Myrtle, stopping at every bush and pacing it all out, just as though we was gonna buy it.
Well, if that second-hand man is really serious about buying it, Julia, you sell it. And then you'll get to see Paris, all right? Just keep dropping hints from time to time. That's how I got to see the Atlantic Ocean, you know.
I'm sorry I mentioned it. Only it seems to me, once in your life, before you die, you ought to see a country where they don't talk in English and don't even want to.
Thank you, ladies. Now we'll skip a few hours. But first, we want a little more information about our town. Kind of a scientific account, you might say. So I have asked Professor Willard of our State University to sketch us in a few details of our past history here. Professor Willard! May I introduce Professor Willard of our State University? Just a few notes, as you please, Professor. I'm afraid our time is limited.
Grover's Corners. Let me see. Grover's Corners lies on the old Pliocene granite of the Appalachian Range. I may say it's some of the oldest land in the world. We're very proud of that here. Of course, there are some more recent outcroppings. Sandstone showing through a shelf of Devonian basalt and some vestiges of Mesozoic shale, but, well, these are comparatively new, perhaps 200 or 300 million years. Some highly interesting fossils have been found. I may say unique fossils, 2 miles north of Peckham's farm in Silas Peckham's cow pasture. These may be seen in the museum at any time. That is, any reasonable time. Shall I read some of Professor Gruber's notes on the meteorological situation?
I'm afraid we won't have time for that, Professor. We might have a word on the history of man here.
Oh, anthropological data. Early Amerindian stock, Chattahoochee tribe. No evidence before the 10th century of this era. Now, completely disappeared. Oh, well, possible traces in 3 families. Migration in the early part of the 17th century of English brachiocephalic blue-eyed stock. Since then, some Slav and Mediterranean.
And the population, Professor?
Within the town limits, 2,640.
Oh, just a minute, Professor.
Ah, yes! Population at the present moment, 2,642. The postal district brings in 507 more, making a total of 3,149. Mortality and birth rates, constant. By McPherson's gauge, 6.03.
Thank you, Professor. I'm sure we're all very obliged to you.
Not at all, sir, not at all.
Professor Willard of our state university. Now, for the social and political report, Editor Webb. Mr. Webb.
He'll be here in a minute. Oh, he just cut his hand whilst eating an apple.
Thank you, Mrs. Webb.
Charles, everybody's waiting.
Mr. Webb is editor and publisher of the Grover's Corner Sentinel. That's our local paper, you know.
Well, don't have to tell you that we're run here by a board of select men. All males vote at the age of 21. Women vote indirect. We're lower middle class with a sprinkling of professional men, 10% illiterate laborers. Politically, we're 86% Republican, 6% Democrat, 4% Socialist, rest indifferent. Religiously, we're 85% Protestant, 12% Catholic, rest indifferent.
Any comments, Mr. Webb?
It's a very ordinary town, if you ask me. A little better behaved than most, probably a lot duller. But our young people seem to like it well enough. 90% of them, graduating from high school, settle down right here to live, even when they've been away to college.
Now, is there anyone in our audience who would like to ask Editor Webb a question about our town? Yes.
Is there much drinking in Grover's Corners?
Well, ma'am, I wouldn't know what you'd call much. Saturday nights, the farmhands gather down at Ellery Greenick stables and holler some. Oh, we've 1 or 2 town drunks, but they're always having remorses every time an evangelist comes to town. No, ma'am, I'd say liquor ain't a problem. Ain't a regular thing in the home here, except in the medicine chest. It's right good for snake bites, you know, always was.
Is there anyone in this town aware?
Excuse me, sir. Could you please come down forward where we can all hear you? Now, what was it you wanted to ask?
Is there anyone in this town aware of issues such as social injustice and industrial inequality?
Oh, yes, everybody is something terrible. Seems like they spend most of the time talking about who's rich and who's poor.
Why doesn't someone do something about it?
Well, I don't know. I guess we're all hunting here for, like everybody else, for some way that the diligent and sensible can rise to the top and the lazy and quarrelsome sink to the bottom. but it ain't easy to find. Meantime, we do all we can to take care of those that can't help themselves. And those that can, we leave alone. Are there any other questions?
Oh, Mr. Webb.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Webb, is there any culture or love of beauty in Grover's Corners?
Well, ma'am, there ain't much. Not in the sense you mean. Come to think of it, there's some girls that play piano for the high school commencement, but they ain't happy about it. No, ma'am, there isn't much culture. But maybe this is the place to tell you that we've got a lot of pleasures of a kind here. We like the sun coming up over the mountain in the morning. We all notice a good deal about the birds. We pay a lot of attention to them. We watch the change of the season. Yes, we know about them, but those other things, you're right, ma'am, there ain't much. Robinson Crusoe, the Bible, Handel's Largo, we all know that. Whistler's Mother. That's just about as far as we go.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. We must get back to Grover's Corners. It's now 2 o'clock. All 2,642 have had their lunches and all the dishes have been washed. The children are back in school. You can hear a humming and a buzzing coming from the school buildings over there. There's a couple of carriages left on Main Street. Horses are dozing at the hitching posts. There's an afternoon calm about the town. Do you all remember what that's like? Doc Gibbs is up in his office, tapping people, making them say, ah. And there's Mr. Webb cutting his lawn over there. It's 1 man in 10 who considers it a privilege to push his own lawnmower.
I can't believe I've got to go home. Goodbye.
Emily, walk simply. Who do you think you are today?
Oh, Papa, you're terrible. 1 minute you tell me to stand up straight, and the next minute you call me names. I just don't listen to you.
Ellie, that's the first time I ever got a kiss from such a great lady.
Excuse me, Miss Forrest.
Go out and play in the field, young man. You got no business playing baseball on Main Street.
Awfully sorry, Miss Forrest. Hello, Emily.
Hello.
You made a fine speech in class.
Well, I was really ready to make a speech about Monroe Doctrine, but at the last minute, Miss Corcoran made me talk about the Louisiana Purchase instead. I worked an awful long time on both of them.
Gee. It's funny, Emily. From my window up there, I can just see your head nods when you're doing your homework over in your room.
Why, can you?
You certainly do stick to it. I don't see how you can sit still that long. I guess you must like school.
Well, I always feel it's a thing a person has to go through.
Yeah.
I don't mind it really. It passes the time.
Yeah. Emily, what do you think? We might work out a kind of telegraph from your window over to mine, and once in a while you can give me a kind of hint or two about one of those algebra problems. Oh, I don't mean the answers, Emily. Of course not. Just some little hint.
Well, I think hints are allowed. So if you get stuck, George, you just whistle to me and I'll give you some hints.
Emily, you're just naturally bright, I guess.
I figure it's the way a person's born.
But you see, I want to be a farmer. My Uncle Luke says whenever I'm ready, I can come over and work on his farm, and if I'm any good, I can just gradually have it.
You mean the house and everything?
Yeah. Well, I better be getting out to the baseball field. Thanks for the talk, Emily. Good afternoon, Ms. Webb.
Good afternoon, George.
So long, Emily.
So long, George.
Emily, come up and help me string these beans for the winter. Well, George Gibbs let himself have a real conversation, didn't he? He's growing up. How old would George be?
Oh, I don't know.
Let's see, he must be almost 16.
Mama, I made a speech in class today, and I was very good.
Well, you must recite it to your father at supper. What was it about?
The Louisiana Purchase. It was like silk off a spool. I'm going to make speeches all my life, Mama. Are these big enough?
Try and get them a little bigger if you can.
Mama, can I ask
you a question serious? Seriously, dear, not serious. Seriously, can I? Of course you can. Am I good looking? Well, of course you are. Both my children got good features. Why, I'd be ashamed if they hadn't. No, Mama, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, am I pretty? Well, I already told you yes. Now, that's enough of that. You have a nice, young, pretty face. I never heard such foolishness. Mama, you never tell us the truth about anything. Well, I am telling you the truth.
Were you pretty?
Yes, I was, if I do say it. I was the prettiest girl in town, next to Mamie Cartwright.
Well, Mama, you've got to say something about me. Am I pretty enough to get anybody, to get any people interested in me?
Emily, you make me tired. Now stop it. That's enough of that. You're pretty enough for all normal purposes. Come along now and bring those beans with you.
Oh. Mama, you're no help at all.
Now I think it's time to tell you that the Cartwright interests are building a new bank in town. They had to bring in the marble from Vermont, I'm sorry to say. And they asked a friend of mine what they should put in the cornerstone for people to dig up 1,000 years from now. Of course, they're putting in a copy of the New York Times and a copy of Editor Webb Sentinel. Now, I'm awfully interested in this because, you see, some scientific fellows have come up with a way of painting all this reading matter with a kind of a glue. It's a silicate glue. It'll make it last for 1,000, 2,000 years. We're going to put in a copy of the Bible, a copy of the Constitution of the United States, William Shakespeare's plays. You tell me. What do you think? You know, Babylon once had 2 million people in it. And all we know about it is the names of their kings, a couple of wheat contracts, the sales of slaves. Every night, all these families would sit down to supper. Father would come home from work, smoke would go up the chimney, just like it is around here. Why, even in Greece and Rome, all that we know about the real life of the people is what we can piece together from their joking poems and the comedies they wrote for the theater back then. So, I'm going to have a copy of this play put into that cornerstone so that people 1,000 years from now will get a few simple facts about us. More than the Treaty of Versailles or the Lindbergh flight. You see what I mean? So that people 1,000 years from now, this is the way we work. In the little provinces north of New York at the beginning of the 20th century, this is the way we work. In our growing up, in our marrying, our living, and our dying. We must get back to Grover's Corners. It's evening. You can hear the choir practice going on at the Congregational Church. All the children are at home, doing their schoolwork. The day is running down like a tired clock.
No. We must sing together. Just as we start together and we stop together, we must stay together. Now, let us begin again at the beginning of the first verse. And ladies, remember please, music came into the world to give pleasure. game even if you try. Now, let us begin again at the beginning of the first verse. And tenors, tempo. Ready? Speak.
Emily!
Hello?
Hello?
Why isn't the moonlight horrible? I can't work at all.
Emily, did you get the third problem?
Which?
The third!
Why, yes, George, that's the easiest of them all.
I don't see it. Well, Emily, can you give me a hint?
I'll tell you one thing. The answer's in yards.
Yards? How do you mean?
In square yards.
Oh, square yards.
Yes, George, don't you see?
Yeah.
In square yards of wallpaper.
Oh, I see. In square yards of wallpaper. Thanks a lot, Emily.
You're welcome. Why isn't the moonlight horrible? And choir practice going on? I bet if you hold your breath, you can hear the train all the way from Contoogan. Can you hear it?
Mm-hmm. What do you know?
Well, I guess I better go back and try to work.
Good night, Emily.
Good night, George.
As far as bad. You aren't no miracle either. Now, before I forget, show of hands, please. Oh, that's very encouraging. We'll do the same music we did for Julius Trowbridge's last month. And now, to finish the rehearsal, we'll do Blessed Be the Tie That... No? Oh. We've already done it. Number 99. Art thou weary? Art thou languid? And ladies and gentlemen, remember, it's a question. Make it talk. George, can you come down a minute?
Yes, Pa?
And remember, on Sunday, start the second verse slowly and die off. Make yourself comfortable, George. I'll only keep you a minute. How old are you, George?
Me? I'm 16, almost 17.
Oh, and what do you want to do when school's over?
Well, you know, Pa. I want to be a farmer on Uncle Luke's farm.
Oh, and you'd be willing for you to get up early and milk and feed the stock and you be able to hoe and hay all day?
Well, sure I will. What do you mean, Pa?
Well, George, when I was in my office today, I heard a funny sound. What do you think it was? Well, it was your mother chopping wood. Oh, well, now there you see your mother getting up early every morning and cooking meals all day long and washing and ironing, and still she has to go out in the backyard and chop wood. Well, I suppose she just got tired of asking you. I guess she gave up and decided it was easier to do it herself. And you eat her meals and put on the clothes she keeps nice for you, and you run off and play baseball. Well, like she's some hired girl we keep around the house, but we don't like very much. I knew all I have to do is call your attention to it. Here's the handkerchief, son. George, I've decided to raise your spending money 25 cents a week. Now, not for chopping wood for your mother, because that's the present you give her, but because you getting older, and I imagine there's lots of things you can find to do with it.
Thanks, Pa.
Yeah, I see tomorrow's payday. You can count on it. I reckon Rebecca thinks she ought to have more, too. Wonder what could be keeping your mother. Choir practice never been this late before.
It's only 8:30, Pa.
I don't know why she wants to be in that old choir way. She ain't got no more than a voice than old crow. Breaks around town this hour of the night. About time you turned in, don't you think?
Yes, Pa.
Good night, Arthur. Good night, Mr. Foster.
I'll tell Mr. Webb. I know the one put in the paper.
My, it's late.
Oh, good night, Irma.
Real nice choir practice, wasn't it? Myrtle Webb, look at that moon. Potato weather for sure.
Naturally, I didn't want to say a word in front of those others, but now we're alone. Oh, really, it's the worst scandal that ever was in this town. What? Simon Stimson.
Now, Luella.
Julia, to have the choir director of the church drink and drunk year after year.
Well,
Julia, you know, he was drunk tonight.
Now, Luella, we all know about Mr. Stimson, and we all know about the troubles he's been through. And Dr. Ferguson knows too. And if Dr. Ferguson keeps him on there in his job, the only thing the rest of us can do is just not to notice it.
Not to notice it, but it's getting worse.
No, it isn't, Luella. It's getting better. Now, I have been in that choir twice as long as you have, and it doesn't happen anywhere near so often.
Myrtle,
Oh,
did you
my.
see?
I hate to go to bed on a night like this. Gracious, I'd better hurry. Those children will be sitting up till all hours. Good night, Luella. Julia.
Good night, Myrtle. Can you get home safe, Luella?
Oh, mercy, it's bright as day out. Why, I can just see Mr. Sun scowling at the window. Why, you'd think we'd been to a dance the way the men won't carry on. Oh, good night, Julia.
Good night, Luella.
See you Sunday.
See you then. Well, we had a real nice time.
Yeah, you late enough.
Frank, it ain't any later than usual.
And you stopping on the corner to gossip with a lot of hens.
Frank, grouchy. Come out and smell my heliotrope in the moonlight. Isn't that wonderful? What do you do all the time I was away?
I read as usual. What the girls had to gossip about tonight.
Well, believe me, Frank, there's something to gossip about.
Simon Stimson, far gone, was he?
Worst I've ever seen him. Frank, how'd that end? Well, Dr. Ferguson can't forgive him forever.
Yeah, I guess I know more about Simon Stimson's affair than anybody in this town. Some people weren't made for small town living. I know where to end. All we can do is just leave it alone. Now, come on, go in.
No, not yet. Frank, I'm worried about you.
Oh, and what are you worried about?
I think it's my duty to see to it that you get a real rest and change. And if I get that legacy, I'm going to insist on it.
Now, Julia, there's no sense in going over that again. And now, come on, it's getting late. First thing you know, you'll catch cold. I gave George a piece of my mind tonight. I reckon you'll have your wood job for a while anyway. Now, come on, start going upstairs.
There's always so many things to pick up, seems like. Frank, Mrs. Fairchild locks her front door every night. All those people up that part of town do.
They're all getting city-fied over there. That's the trouble with them. They haven't got anything fit to burgle, and everybody knows it.
Get out, Rebecca. There's only room for one at this window.
Let me look just a minute.
Use your own window.
I did, but there's no moon there, George. You know what I think, do you? I think maybe the moon's getting nearer and nearer, and there'll be a big explosion.
Rebecca, you don't know anything. If the moon were getting nearer, the men that stay up all night with telescopes would see it first, and they'd tell us about it. It'd be in all the newspapers.
George, is the moon shining on South America and Canada and half the whole world?
Well, probably is.
It's 9:30. Almost all the lights in town are out. There's Constable Warren trying a few doors on Main Street. And here comes Editor Webb after putting his newspaper to bed.
Good evening, Bill.
Oh, good evening, Mr. Webb.
Like the moon.
Yep.
All quiet tonight.
Simon Stimson's been rolling around a little. Just saw his wife moving out to hunt for him, so I looked the other way. There he is now.
Good evening, Simon. Town seems to have settled down for the night pretty well. Good evening. Yes, most of the town settled down for the night, Simon. Guess we ought to do the same. Can I walk along or wait with you? Good night.
I don't know how that's going to end up, Mr. Webb.
Hey, well, he's seen a peck of trouble, one thing after another. Oh, Bill, if you see my boy smoking cigarettes, just give him a word, will you? He thinks a lot of you, Bill.
I don't think your boy smokes no cigarettes, Mr. Webb. Leastways, not more than 2 or 3 a year.
No, not. Good night, Bill.
Good night, Mr. Webb.
Who's that up there? Is that you, Myrtle?
No, it's me, Papa.
Well, why aren't you in bed?
Oh, I don't know, Papa. I just couldn't sleep yet. Isn't the moonlight wonderful? And the smell of Mrs. Gibbs' heliotrope? Can you smell it?
Yes. You have any troubles on your mind, have you, Emily?
Troubles, Papa? No.
Well, don't let your mother catch you. Good night, Emily.
Good night, Papa. I never did tell you about that letter Jane Croker got from her minister when she was sick. He wrote Jane a letter, and on the envelope the address was like this. It said Jane Croker, Croker Farm, Grover's Corners, Sutton County, New Hampshire, the United States of America.
What's funny about that?
But listen, it's not finished. The United States of America, the continent of North America, the Western Hemisphere, the Earth, the solar system, the universe, the mind of God. That's what it said on the envelope.
What do you know?
Yep, and the postman delivered it just the same.
What do you know?
Well, that's the end of the first act, folks. You can go and have a drink now. Well, those of you who drink.